Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am Amar, and together with Tauros, we shall venture into another discussion about VS. Today we rock out with a certified little sister lover. Bruce, tell us what kind of soundtrack makes you go all loose.
I feel like you didn't have to add that little sister lover part.
What?
But,
No.
yeah, I know, I
First,
understand.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
First things first, for anyone who may not remember you from last week's episode, why don't you introduce yourself again to all our listeners, Bruce?
So my name is Bruce, mostly known for Brucegoneloose. I mostly do visual novel reviews. I do other things. I mean, it depends, but mostly I do visual novel things. And if you guys haven't heard me, hi.
Hello. This episode, we really wanted to focus about soundtracks, especially visual novel OSTs. And you came to us with a lot of interest in this topic, Bruce, and you really wanted to share some thoughts about it?
So I really want to talk about soundtracks because I feel like soundtracks are underrated, which sounds kind of weird because you always hear people super praise like the Steins Gate soundtrack or the Umineko soundtrack, but nobody praises maybe the not as well received visual novel soundtracks, but they're still good. And to initially start off, personally for me, I'm just curious. For you guys, what kind of soundtracks do you like? What's your favorite soundtrack? In a visual novel, that is, of course.
For me, I give huge points to something with style. When a visual novel has a unique identity in just several different aspects, like its artwork and its themes and its character designs, and of course, its soundtrack. And something that can tie all of these aspects together into one unified theme earns huge points in my book. And so, for example, one thing I'd say that has a fantastic soundtrack I enjoy is Danganronpa. In a vacuum, it has a lot of good songs and a lot of several variety of emotions to fit whatever scene it needs to play. But the music also fits all of Danganronpa's pop, that kind of vibrant, brash energy it brings. You can feel it, all in. That's what some people would say is like Danganronpa's DNA. And I think the music goes a long way in contributing to that. And that's something I really appreciate in a soundtrack.
Huh.
All right, and how about MR?
I mean, it's... on one hand, I agree with Tauros, but on the other hand, I cannot... No, it can't style smile, no. Soundtrack, the one that I remember the most, complements the situation, always. And the more unique that music accompanying a situation is, the more ingrained in my memory is. One great example would be Euphoria. The Tour to Paradise soundtrack was always used on the high notes, whereas other less memorable soundtrack, but still stylistic, very much so, the Madness, when the intense scenes were happening. So, if I were to give a very generic answer, slightly outside of VNs, I like Lord of the Rings soundtrack, because I almost immediately can identify a scene from the movie based upon the soundtrack, because it's very unique per scene. And going back to VNs, I like those. And that culminates more often than not that I tend to like soundtracks that are run during the endings, because they are often very rarely used by the end, obviously. And the one that stuck with me was the Machine song for the Princess X. That was beautiful rendition because it had that distinctive feel of synthetic music, which you could expect out of machine person routes ending. That was... I can't describe how different it felt to hear a sad synthetic music, even performed with a vocalist that was very unemotional, but given your understanding of lyrics, you felt the sadness. Like, holy hell, that was a good emotional moment. But that was complemented by soundtrack like no other.
That's a well, you gave multiple examples, but I would say in general that sort of idea is an example. For example, have you guys read Hoshi Memo?
I have not.
So the visual novel is known for a couple of things, but one thing it's specifically known for, and don't at me here. It's like so there's a sister character. Okay.
Okay.
And whilst none of the other characters have a theme, this character has a theme, and it is extremely memorable because it always it's always before one specific thing, and I mean I could do it live for you guys if you want. Do you want me to do it?
Go for it.
It's PG. Don't worry.
Hold up. Wait, MR. We would have to disable our background music really quick, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Let me.
Don't worry, it's PG.
We're gonna do it live.
No, it's live.
All right.
Post.
All right. So I could do it.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So this character is like, Oni-chan, Oni-chan, Oni-chan. Okay. And then it's like, and then the character theme happens. Okay, you could start the music again, but. So that happens, and then like it's the most memorable theme you'll never forget, because even if you don't like this character, you can't forget her because of the theme. And I believe that's like a very important part of like soundtracks in general. Like, you know, like soundtracks are supposed to do multiple things. They're supposed to make you feel, they're supposed to make you maybe not feel if they're not there, but there's character soundtracks as well, as you know, like a lot of visual novels have character themes, and in this specific visual novel, only having one character theme, it's huge. Like it really hits you. Like if you haven't played Hoshi Memo, well, I recommend the visual novel, and also the character sucks. But even if the character sucks, and like you'll never forget her. That's the fun part, right? Because like, it's like, I really just want to sing this song. I'm not gonna do it, but you just know, you know. Her name is Shinami, and like I know specific. I even know some content creators, right? And they're like, they absolutely hate her, and like even when I go do, and they just. They just add me on Discord, but you know what I mean, right?
Wow.
The character themes are huge. I think I forgot my original point, but
I mean,
that's okay.
I didn't, because what point you made is you tied a very iconic and catchy to some degree music that plays whenever that character starts her shtick, and in that. And then it hits you, right? And
exactly.
For those who didn't like those character, you can now knock them with that soundtrack, and they revolt and scurry away from you. Okay, I mean that's impactful. It's a different breed of impact that my examples gave, but I can, you know what? Now that I think about that example, yeah, I know a lot of VNs that tied with an atmosphere and theme of a particular scenario, even on repeat, and after a few iterations, yeah, it stucks with you. You're correct. Yeah. Huh.
But by the way, MR, I don't think I can continue unless you give me your best impression of the Oni-chan,
Why?
with your best effort.
No,
jeez.
Why? Why
man.
would
Come
you
on,
do
do
that
it.
to me, Oni-chan?
Come on, do it.
Okay.
With your best effort.
Yeah, that was my best effort. Oni-chan. Come on, what the hell to expect?
That's what
Are
you
you
can
satisfied, Mr. Bruce, that goes after little sisters? Okay.
I'm not satisfied, but I'm
Bruce.
satisfied enough.
Bruce is
Ah.
walking into our podcast and he is trying to do weird things.
I'm in the podcast, and I'm here to do things that are important. By the way,
True.
I'm doing the things that matter.
And
Oh,
having little sister say Oni-chan is integral to experience. No other brother or broski can do that justice.
I think we've lost the point. Something about soundtracks, right?
Soundtrack?
There's one very interesting point you made about that, about having one singular character theme, signified by the soundtrack, a specific track that plays just for one character. I think that's actually a very subtle way for the visual novel to highlight an important character. It's not as direct as to where the writing will come out and say, hey, this person's really important for the story and whatnot. It's the sort of thing where it puts extra emphasis on a character, like a spotlight, but without you specifically seeing how. Because the background music is usually background. It's not the sort of thing you consciously pay attention to unless the theme is going for that sort of approach, like some Ace Attorney tracks or some Danganronpa tracks, or like a really hype fight scene where the music just dominates and sets the mood. For something like a character theme, it's supposed to be an accompaniment. And when you have something that unique, where the listener doesn't even realize that this is a specific track only to that one character, it's the sort of thing that only becomes apparent when you're like hours into this text. And it's a great way for a visual novel to use all of its aspects, not just the writing, not just the visuals, but also a soundtrack to make a character stand out more than you would normally expect.
Have you guys heard of light motifs?
Can you say that again?
Light motifs.
Light motifs?
Maybe not. It's a German word. It's more of a musical term, but pretty much it's like a reoccurring musical phrase. The best way I can describe it is like for example, I have to go back to this, but for example, in Clannad, so there's multiple songs with the do 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 do, you know what I mean? And like, so that's a leitmotif. It's a reoccurring musical phrase, and it can mean things, especially in things like a Steins Gate. And it's probably it's a musical element that is often looked down upon and maybe not researched into, but it really matters because, like, for example, even if you don't really initially care about the different like ways that musical motif does, it can really help make you feel. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I've lost the original goal of the question.
To the best of my ability, let me understand the leitmotif, right? And an example in VN how it's used. Would it be a particular track to signify, oh, this is a comedic moment, don't take it too seriously, right? So the first time you hear it and you read the event, right, of characters bickering up, you're like, oh, okay, that's a slapstick, okay, get it. But the second time it comes up, then you internalize the motif and incoming slapstick before it comes. Is that what you mean?
The idea is there, yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty much exactly that, but it's you use the same musical maybe phrase in different songs.
Okay.
Does that go ahead?
Could have even variations. It doesn't have to be one particular track, but rather the way it's structured. Okay.
And it doesn't have to be happy. Like, for example, it could be happy in one phrase, it could be sad in one phrase, but it's just that's just what they use it for. But nonetheless, like that sort of thing, it's, to most people, it's hidden behind like the musical theory that most people don't really think about it, but it really accentuates how you feel.
Mhm.
I know that's a very general way to say it,
No,
but
no,
you know what
yeah.
I mean, right?
Exactly, because like to use a Fate Stay Night example, Saber's theme has a very memorable motif in it, and
Mhm.
if you pay attention, every so often throughout the whole Fate series, that motif pops up again. Usually, anything related to Camelot or the Round Table Knights. A few other
Mhm.
characters also share that little riff. It comes up a few times in some of Fate Grand Order's boss battles for appropriate moments, and it does a great job of highlighting the character relationships.
That's
Hmm.
exactly it.
It's a way to show off not only their relationships but also what characters idolize Saber, as well as other characters who may have more complicated histories involving her, or a way to tie a chapter to, I guess, Saber's reign.
Mhm.
And it's very famous, and it shows up throughout Fate's whole 15-year history. It's another way that just a simple musical soundtrack can just completely carry a series
True.
through
I
all
agree.
those years.
Although my example, when you mentioned Fate, immediately the moment you mentioned this is the soundtrack Breach. It's the one that is all about tearing metal against metal, and it comes into place when you are in grave danger, and especially when you're faced with a choice. And Fate Stay Night is famous for having a lot of bad endings based on choices, right? So that's the one that Breach. It's just stuck with me for that long.
Oh, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, it's very grindy in a uncomfortable metallic way, and that's his job. It should be. You are now wary something real is happening. Like, okay, focus and survive.
But even like for example, you have soundtracks that are very emotional. Holy crap, I can't speak the word, but you know what I mean. And words are hard. But lacking soundtracks is also huge. Like, for example, if you have a soundtrack throughout the entire VN and then all of a sudden you don't, it kind of
Ooh,
feels creepy, you know?
I know what you mean.
Do you understand the feeling?
Oh yeah.
Like, the best example I can currently think of is Doki Doki Literature Club, but there are a lot of examples, VNs that do that, and to great effect.
Oh yeah, I remember, what was it? I guess a year ago now, when I read there was a free title that came out called Queen Beast. And it was like, it reminded me a lot of The Princess Bride. It was that story of adventure and the hero setting off to rescue the princess in peril, that sort of thing. And I remember they went on a little stealth portion and the background music completely stopped. It was silence. And I remember thinking, it was like, oh, I was on edge. I didn't realize it at first, but I was like, holy crap, why am I so tense? And then it took me a second to realize, hey, wait a second, there's no music at all. And it's an unvoiced VN, so there's no other sound effects either. It was just complete, total silence.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Holy hell.
Yeah, and later in the scene, when music started up again, it was like, oh, okay, I could let out my breath.
I was going to mention that effect of having a music and it suddenly stops is multiplied if that VN doesn't have voice acting for characters, because at that point it's complete silence. And what it tends to happen for you as a reader, if the title sold you on the waiting for the next moment, and then when the music picks up again, it's like, oh, right? The relief comes on.
Yeah, 100%, and I completely agree with you. Yeah, like yeah, I can think of a lot of examples, even in like normal games, like games that aren't visual novels from my childhood, that I can just think of. They stop the music, and you just feel like kind of freaked. Like you don't necessarily feel exactly scared, but like maybe don't know what to do. You don't know how to feel, but there's just nothing, Yeah. So how do you feel?
In that, it's very hard to describe why they lower the room temperature with just not
And I
having
think-
music.
I think that's the beauty of soundtracks. Like, not only, like, I mean, there's a lot of beauty of soundtracks being good, but like, even like, it's emphasized in the fact that they're not there, that you realize that like it creates a different feeling.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I agree.
Bruce, I know we've been talking a lot about examples and whatnot, but what's one of your VNs with your favorite soundtrack in general? I know that's pretty open-ended question, so I mean, I guess you could take that any direction you want.
A Symphonic Rain.
Nice.
To be more specific, have you guys read Symphonic Rain?
I have, yes.
So Symphonic Rain is like it's like an interesting story. Like, I really like the story behind it, but what's more interesting, maybe what makes more the feelings for me, is like the story behind the visual novel, because the composer had cancer whilst composing all the things,
Oh my
but
goodness.
she put her all in like recording the album before so
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's awful.
yeah. But I listened to probably her version of the soundtrack at least twice a week. I just think it's really good. It's just her singing like the same song, but it's a really beautiful thing. I think it's maybe hard to I don't know, interpret. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of words to say about it, but it's really sad, and I really wish all I wish is more people would play the game. And that's why it's one of my first recommendations to people who want to read larger visual novels, because I feel like not only is it an amazing visual novel, but it also has a really good story behind it. So
I think MR and I have discussed music and soundtracks and visual novels a few times before on the podcast, and I definitely remember I wanted to gush about Symphonic Rain when those topics come up, because it's another fantastic example of a visual novel where the soundtrack plays into the VN style. Like, yeah, it's a story about a main character, a high school boy, who's attending a special university just devoted to music. And he's a musician, and he's surrounded by music, and everyone around him wants to express themselves through their music. And not only that, the entire little city, the entire little town is always raining. And so that really gives a damp mood over the entire visual novel. It's very somber at parts. It's also, hopeful to the future, but always muted. And the soundtrack is wonderful because it plays into that. It's a whole bunch of stringed instruments, so much piano, and all of the tracks are quite slow-paced and almost melancholic.
that's exactly how I describe it. Do you mind if I cut in?
Oh, totally, yeah.
So that melancholic is exactly how I would describe the tracks, but it's not only that, because like the game actually uses so there's multiple soundtracks in the game, but there's some soundtracks that are related to characters, like they sing them, but those actual soundtracks are related to their character stories in some way. Like, the game never misuses the soundtracks, which I think is amazing. That's all I can really describe it as. But it really I'm moving my hands a lot. I don't know how to explain it, but it's so good.
Yes.
Like,
you mentioned before how these characters, that the one character in Hoshizora, I think it was you mentioned,
Hoshimemo Shinami, probably.
Hoshimemo. Okay, thank you. How she had her own character theme. And in Symphonic Rain, these other heroines have their own character themes too.
Mhm.
And in the game, these are supposed to be like their final exam performance. This is what their student career is riding on to flawlessly give this performance that really speaks about themselves.
Uh-huh.
And even, out of the context, out of the universe, us as readers can also hear these songs and appreciate how much they resonate with the characters.
Mhm.
I obviously don't want to get too much into it because, obviously not everyone here has read it, and I don't want to talk you guys' ear off. But yes, it's like when you see these characters and you hear that these songs that are, coming from their heart, and you hear them and you're like, oh my goodness, it really is. You end up hearing the heroine's main character themes several times as you practice them throughout their routes. And every
Mhm.
time you kind of hear another layer to it as the route unfolds as well.
Mhm.
Symphonic Rain is seriously one of the best VNs out there for how much it marries the soundtrack with the plot and the character and the art style and the entire atmosphere behind the VN. It's very good, yes.
All right. We're happy to hear your Symphonic Rain review, but what of the podcast?
Oh, man. I got carried away.
Go ahead.
No, not at all. I asked you for your favorite, and I kind of took over for you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Is there another title that you really liked the soundtrack? Something I haven't read, so I can't interrupt you.
No. By the way, Symphonic Rain is the best visual novel, and I will continue Toro's rant, or whatever you want to call it. Read it. I don't care. There's a lot of viewers here. They might, they might be casual, they might be hardcore, but at the end of the day, Symphonic Rain is a kind of visual novel that, if you don't read, then you haven't read visual novels. Period. That's the end of my statement.
Hey, don't call me a fraud, okay?
But
Straight to MR's face.
I think we're getting off topic because I don't know how much time we have, but there's one more thing I want to mention. So what do you guys think of classical music usage in visual novels?
I mean,
If you have an opinion of it.
like an orchestral music, for example?
Or orchestral music, classical music, etc. There's a good couple of visual novels I can think of, but I was just thinking I have a lot to say about that topic, so I just thought I'd mention
go
it.
ahead. My example that comes for is
Oh, it was,
the classical orchestral tracks there, and I don't know how much it fits into the criteria of classical, but what stood out to me, and I was thinking about that when you guys were gushing about Symphonic Rain, when it comes to personal tracks, right? And there was one particular moment. I'm trying the best not to spoil it, okay? Because it's a very special moment. But because Euphoria being very psychologically demanding on all the characters, and they go through a lot of stressful situations in order to survive. That's the premise. And you tend to have a feel about some characters. Some deals with stress better, some worse, some are more flippant. It depends, right? And what stood to me is one moment during the night phase when everybody goes to sleep, and uncharacteristically, to even some degree, you find a character who tries to cope with psychological distress by singing a lullaby to herself in order to calm. And that was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I don't know if you remember that one, Bruce, but that was a very beautiful moment, I have to say.
That's the half of the topic I wanted to talk about, but the other half is real I want to say real classical music, like a Libestrom. Like I don't know. Have you guys read You and Me and Her?
Ooh, I have not.
No.
Okay, so maybe it's harder to explain, but so there are a couple of visual novels, especially modern ones actually, that use classical music, and it uses to great effect, especially with the theme. But a lot of people don't appreciate it, and like I don't want to say you guys don't appreciate it, but maybe you guys
Think
like.
I have
Go ahead.
enough of a hint about You and Me and Her to kind of get the right impression about it.
Yeah, well, so the song Libestrom specifically is like it's supposed to be a start and an end to a love, and it works in multiple works, and it's used in multiple works. It's used in You and Me and Her, no spoilers, but it's used very professionally, and it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like classical music is underused in visual novels, but that's just one of my many opinions. So
No, that's cool.
but one thing I would love to know, maybe not like, I don't want to know the individual soundtrack, but like if you had to pick one visual novel with a soundtrack that's amazing, what would you pick? And I don't mean again like not individual, but like the entirety, because for me at least, like it's an entirely different thing. But maybe I'm just like reaching the core here.
I told you I prepared. I have an answer. Evangelical.
Aha.
Yeah, I mean, even though maybe I don't have those highest notes that I gave examples before during this episode, but I feel the consistency of its track and slow de-evolution is something that they do really well. What I mean by that, in Evangelical, there is a journey that hero undergoes, and it is in the opposite way of the journey that heroes of the past did. What they did end up is the city you start with, and when you end up is the city they started with, right? So you have the opposite way. And soundtrack reflect that. Every zone and every place you visit has that distinctive feel to it, but slowly but surely you feel like the atmosphere in the soundtrack degrades. Whereas at the start it was very happy-go-lucky. By the end you feel like that soundtrack is marching armies. And I felt like, damn, that's amazing that they achieved that, given the entire album.
As for me, I would have to say the best total soundtrack for the I've read, Fate's Day Night. I'm too much a fan for all the sorts of emotions that soundtrack can bring. All the peaceful, happy days, the serious moments, the scary moments, all of the romantic scenes, all of the hype fight tracks. There are so many of their tracks that are just iconic to me. It made a lot of Fate's Day Night stand out.
Unfortunately, I haven't read it. I feel like it's like one of the things like I have to like read soon, because everyone says like, "Oh yeah, read Fate's Day Night," but like, okay, well, I'll get to it. That's always my opinion.
See, and who's the fake VN reader, huh? Who's the fake one?
Yeah, who's the fake?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, who's the fake VN reader?
Real VN fan.
Yeah,
no
well,
way.
I mean, yeah, fair enough.
You're a real fan in my heart. You're good. Bruce.
You guys can roast me. I mean, I leave for 6 months at a time, and I still have 4 times more subscribers than you. Anyway, sorry, only slightly mad.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll have to end it on this note. Thank you so much for stopping by again, Bruce Gone Loose. I'm too used to just calling you Bruce, and now I've tongue twisted myself.
Yeah, I did my best. I think you should very well subscribe to VNture Podcast, but if you feel like you don't have to do that, you could always subscribe to me. I'm a good guy, you know.
Oh, nice.
Hey, no,
I'm also shameless.
You put out great content. I really love your reviews. They're very to the point and very objective. I like them.
I appreciate it. I never mince my words. Like, I'm not a person to say things that I don't mean. Like, unless you paid me a lot of money, then maybe I would. But nobody has done that so far. So,
Same here, buddy.
Anyway, feel free to end the episode.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bruce goes after the bug once more that you joined us. And to all our listeners, thank you for listening. Venture out. But this time, specifically for you, Bruce. Oni-chan, I should tell you.
Oni-chan? I know.
Goodbye, everyone. It's been a blast. Thank you. Venture out.
Wait, you're not recording that, actually, are you?